When Burt Reynolds first stepped onto the Tonight Show stage, he knew that he had one shot to make a lasting impression. That single moment would define his future in Hollywood, and Reynolds, ever the consummate performer, wasn't about to let it slip away. What transpired was nothing short of magic. The chemistry between him and Johnny Carson was electric, creating one of the most unforgettable late-night moments in television history. Decades later, that clip is still celebrated and widely viewed, a testament to the undeniable connection the two legends shared. However, beyond the laughter, jokes, and playful banter, there was a much deeper, untold story. A story that remained hidden for years, even from his most ardent fans. Just before he passed away, Reynolds felt the time had come to reveal the truth about his relationship with Carson, a truth that would forever change how we view those iconic moments. Before diving into this revelation, it's essential to understand the unique dynamics between Reynolds and Carson, as well as the journey that brought Reynolds to the Tonight Show stage in the first place. Burt Reynolds wasn't always the charming, rugged Hollywood heartthrob we all came to know. Born on February 11, 1936 in Lansing, Michigan, Reynolds' early life was marked by constant upheaval. The son of a military father, he moved frequently, often not staying in one place for long. Eventually, the Reynolds family settled in Riviera Beach, Florida, in 1946, where Reynolds forged a deep, lifelong friendship with his childhood buddy, Dick Howard, known as Buddy. His athletic talents, particularly in football, began to shine during his high school years, earning him all-state honors and a scholarship to Florida State University. Reynolds' promising football career was, however, cut short due to a devastating knee injury and a car accident that left him with lasting physical issues. After a brief departure from college to recover, he returned to Florida State but ultimately chose to leave football behind, marking a significant shift in his career path. This pivotal moment set the stage for what would become a legendary Hollywood career, but it wasn't without struggle. The early days of Reynolds' acting career were far from glamorous. In 1958, he found himself landing small guest roles on TV shows like Flight and Schlitz Playhouse, and though his appearances were limited, they gave him the chance to hone his craft. In 1960, he joined the cast of Riverboat, starring alongside Darren McGavin. It was a modest role, but for Reynolds, it marked a turning point. He was beginning to establish himself as a charismatic, tough, and likable presence on screen. By the early 1960s, Reynolds' career began to pick up steam. He appeared in a variety of iconic TV shows such as Naked City, Route 66, Perry Mason, and The Twilight Zone. Yet, it was in 1962 that Reynolds would find his breakthrough role. As Quint Asper, a half-Comanche blacksmith on Gunsmoke, he brought depth and heart to a beloved show that would cement his place in the industry. His 3-year stint on Gunsmoke proved he was more than just a pretty face. He had grit and he had the acting chops to back it up. During this period, Reynolds also ventured into film, landing roles in Angel Baby and Armored Command. After Gunsmoke, he starred in action films like Operation CIA and Navajo Joe, but it wasn't until the late 1960s that Reynolds truly began to carve out his place as Hollywood's go-to action hero. Films like 100 Rifles and Shark showcased his tough guy persona, but it was the early 1970s that truly marked his arrival as a pop culture icon. One of the most defining moments of his career came in 1972, a year that would be a game-changer for Reynolds. That year, he starred in the gritty, intense film Deliverance, which earned him critical acclaim and expanded his acting range. But perhaps even more memorable was the infamous Cosmopolitan magazine Centerfold, where Reynolds, in a bold move, posed nude on a bearskin rug. With a mischievous grin and nothing but a rug covering him, the photo became a pop culture phenomenon. It sparked conversations across the nation and cemented Reynolds as an icon who wasn't afraid to push boundaries. As his fame grew, so did the opportunities for Reynolds to appear on the biggest talk shows of the time, including The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Carson, the undisputed king of late-night television, was known for his wit, charm, and his ability to make or break careers with a single interview. For any actor, comedian, or musician, an appearance on The Tonight Show wasn't just another TV spot, it was a rite of passage. If you could make Johnny laugh and truly win him over, you knew you had arrived. When Reynolds got his first invitation to appear on The Tonight Show, he understood the gravity of the opportunity. This wasn't just another TV appearance, it was a career-defining moment, a chance to be seen by millions of viewers, and if played right, a fast track to superstardom. However, with Johnny Carson's legendary status came certain unspoken rules that guests were expected to follow. For those who had been on the show before, these rules were clear and well known. Before Reynolds stepped onto the Tonight Show stage for his first appearance, he had to meet with Carson's longtime producer, Freddie DeCordova. Freddie, as though preparing him for a covert mission, laid down the law. There were a few key things to keep in mind when appearing on Carson's turf. First, no excessive touching. Johnny wasn't a fan of physical contact. Second, and most crucially, don't mess with Carson's pens. Finally, the big one, do not touch Johnny's hair. These quirks weren't just casual suggestions, they were rules that helped set the tone of the show. Following them ensured a smooth, easy appearance, with the audience feeding off the good vibes between host and guest. But if a guest stepped out of line, the mood could shift dramatically, and the atmosphere would become noticeably tense. Burt Reynolds, however, was never one to play it safe. Seeing these rules as the perfect setup for a bit of mischief, he decided to test the boundaries. Reynolds, ever the showman, was aware of the fine line between following the rules and creating an unforgettable moment. And so, instead of playing by the script, he made a bold decision. The moment he sat down across from Johnny Carson, he quickly broke one of the most sacred rules of The Tonight Show. What happened next was nothing short of electric. The chemistry between Reynolds and Carson was palpable, and in that instant, the interview transformed into something more than just an ordinary late-night talk. It was pure entertainment, a back-and-forth banter that felt effortless and fun. The audience couldn't get enough, and neither could Carson. Reynolds knew the magic of the moment, and his quick wit, charming smile, and willingness to push boundaries made the appearance one for the history books. But what most viewers didn't know was that behind the laughs and playful exchange, there was a deeper story unfolding. The relationship between Reynolds and Carson was far more complex than anyone could have imagined. For years, the public knew them only as two stars on a stage, creating television gold. Yet Reynolds later revealed that there was more to their bond than anyone could have guessed. Behind the smiles, there were unspoken tensions, mutual respect, and even a bit of rivalry, elements that would shape their interactions for years to come. Reynolds, always the honest, self-deprecating figure, was never one to shy away from revealing the truth. And so, in his final years, he opened up about his relationship with Carson in a way that stunned even his closest friends. It turns out that the two men shared a bond that was far more intricate than anyone had suspected. Though they were on-screen adversaries at times, off-screen they shared a deep camaraderie and understanding of each other's lives and careers. As Reynolds reflected on his time with Carson, he recalled how their relationship, like most in the entertainment industry, was complicated. Their dynamic was both professional and personal, marked by moments of genuine affection, occasional tension, and a deep respect for each other's talents. But the public didn't see all of that. They only saw the magic that happened when Reynolds appeared on The Tonight Show, and for years, that's all they thought they needed to know. The truth, however, was far richer and more nuanced than the public could ever have imagined. And now, with Reynolds gone, his revelations about his relationship with Johnny Carson offer a new, fascinating layer to the story of two of Hollywood's most iconic figures. Looking back at those classic moments on The Tonight Show, It's clear that the bond between Reynolds and Carson wasn't just one of two men sharing a laugh. It was a deeper connection that shaped both their lives and careers in ways no one could have anticipated. Burt Reynolds' infamous tie-cutting prank on Johnny Carson remains one of the most iconic moments in late-night television history. A perfect storm of unpredictable humor, celebrity antics, and the volatile nature of public personalities. On the surface, it appeared to be an innocent display of on-stage mischief between two titans of entertainment. But behind the scenes, the prank took on a far more complicated significance, unraveling the delicate balance of respect, boundaries, and the psychology of fame that shaped the complex relationship between Reynolds and Carson. It all began in the prop room of The Tonight Show, where Reynolds, always a man of surprises, asked for an odd pair of scissors and a can of whipped cream. What was he planning? Even Reynolds himself didn't seem entirely sure. But one thing was clear. Whatever he had in mind, it was bound to keep Johnny Carson, the show's legendary host, and the audience on edge. When the show began, Reynolds entered, shaking Carson's hand as though nothing were out of the ordinary. But then, in an unexpected move, he snipped Carson's tie right in half. The crowd erupted into laughter. Carson, taken aback by the audacity of the prank, stared into the camera with a mixture of disbelief and practiced grace, milking the moment for all it was worth. His calm demeanor, even in the face of what some might consider a significant breach of personal space, was masterful. However, Carson wasn't going to let Reynolds have the last laugh. Picking up the scissors, he retaliated by cutting off a piece of Burt's shirt collar, setting the stage for an ongoing series of playful acts that quickly escalated. But it didn't end there. Burt Reynolds, ever the showman, revealed the whipped cream and proceeded to dab it onto Carson's hair. The audience roared with laughter as the prank snowballed, with Carson, now fully engaged, smearing whipped cream across Burt's leather pants. The two were now embroiled in a full-blown comedic spectacle. Rules were broken. The tie was ruined. Carson's carefully cultivated public image, one that had been maintained with meticulous precision for decades, was no longer intact. On camera, it was pure magic, a moment of unscripted television that embodied the carefree, spontaneous nature of late-night talk shows at their peak. But off-camera, the aftermath was a little more complicated. Johnny Carson, the epitome of composure in front of the camera, had his limits, and the tie-cutting incident struck a nerve with him. Carson's public persona was built on control, precision, and an aura of unflappable coolness. That tie, one of the staples of his wardrobe, wasn't just an accessory. It was a key part of his carefully crafted image. For Carson, tampering with it wasn't merely playful, it was personal. Despite his apparent ease during the prank, once the cameras stopped rolling, Carson's frustration was palpable. Crew members and those behind the scenes noted that, while he never lost his temper or made a scene, it was clear that the prank had gone too far for Carson's liking. He was known for having specific rules when it came to his appearance and personal items, and Reynolds' prank pushed those boundaries in a way that most guests wouldn't dare. Carson's sharp wit and ability to roll with almost anything had its limits, and Reynolds, for all his charm, had crossed them. Years later, Reynolds would open up about this infamous moment, offering an insightful reflection on how it affected his relationship with Carson. What seemed like a harmless bit of fun on air took on new layers of meaning as Reynolds looked back on it in his later years. He admitted that, while the prank had been funny at the time, in hindsight, he realized it might not have been as lighthearted for Carson as it had appeared. The prank, while an unforgettable TV moment, had left a mark on their relationship, one that Reynolds acknowledged with a mix of regret and understanding. Reynolds, known for his sense of humor and larger-than-life persona, confided that over the years, he came to appreciate just how much Carson valued his image and the boundaries he set around it. Carson, despite being a master of comedy and charm on screen, was, like many public figures, deeply protective of his personal life and appearance. This boundary, which was almost invisible to the audience, was a critical part of Carson's persona off-camera, and Reynolds' playful, albeit risky gesture had inadvertently exposed that vulnerability. This moment of reflection from Reynolds painted a more nuanced picture of their friendship, which, while full of humor and camaraderie, was also laced with an underlying tension. On the surface, their on-air dynamic seemed to reflect a perfect balance. Carson, the cool, calm master of late-night television, and Reynolds, the rebellious, unpredictable movie star. Yet beneath the jokes and playful banter was a relationship marked by unspoken boundaries, mutual respect, and a shared understanding of the pressures both men faced in the unforgiving world of fame. Reynolds admitted that, in the heat of the moment, he hadn't considered how the prank might affect Carson on a deeper level. The legendary talk show host had a way of keeping people at arm's length, even those he considered friends. For all their chemistry on television, the two were never quite as close as one might assume. There was always a degree of emotional distance between them. It wasn't that they didn't respect each other, quite the opposite. But their relationship, Reynolds confessed, was always tinged with a kind of quiet competition, an acknowledgement of each other's brilliance that kept things professional and, at times, distant. For Carson, being in the public eye meant constantly walking the fine line between being relatable to his audience and protecting his personal space. His carefully curated public persona, one built on years of experience and refinement, had to be guarded fiercely. Even those closest to him, like Reynolds, didn't always understand the depth of Carson's commitment to maintaining that balance. In this way, their friendship reflected the larger complexities of Hollywood relationships, where the pressures of fame often overshadow the more personal connections between stars. Despite the occasional friction and unspoken tension, there was no doubt that Carson and Reynolds had a profound influence on each other. Their late-night interactions were a masterclass in chemistry, a delicate dance of wit and timing that delighted audiences. Carson redefined the late-night format with his effortless, laid-back style, allowing his guests to shine while still keeping the focus on his quick wit and charm. Reynolds, on the other hand, brought a sense of unpredictability and raw energy to every appearance, turning what would normally be a standard interview into something entirely dynamic and spontaneous. Together, they created a magical mix of sharp humor and controlled chaos that became the gold standard for late-night television. In the years that followed, Reynolds would often reflect on their relationship, offering a more intimate glimpse into the layers beneath the public persona. The pranks, the laughs, and the unexpected moments were just a small part of a much deeper connection. Despite the pranks and the playful competitiveness, there was genuine affection between the two men. Their friendship, though sometimes tested by the pressures of Hollywood and the complexities of fame, was built on mutual respect and understanding. As Reynolds looked back on his career and the relationships that shaped it, he came to see that his friendship with Carson was more than just a string of jokes and appearances. It was a testament to the sometimes fraught, but ultimately enduring, nature of Hollywood bonds. Even when they didn't agree, even when the pranks went too far, there was always a recognition of each other's brilliance and a deep-seated respect that kept their friendship alive, even when the cameras were off. The prank, in the end, was just another layer in their story, a moment that, for all its playful chaos, also revealed the quiet complexities of two icons navigating the delicate terrain of fame, public expectations, and personal boundaries. For Reynolds, reflecting on that prank was an opportunity to understand not just what he had done in the heat of the moment, but also how it had shaped his relationship with one of the most beloved figures in television history. The tie-cutting incident, in all its absurdity, became a symbol of the complicated dynamic between the two men, a reminder that even the greatest friendships have their share of challenges and complexities, and that sometimes the lines we cross in jest can leave lasting marks. The dynamic between Burt Reynolds and Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show was more than just a string of comedic exchanges. It was an intricate dance of personalities, pushing boundaries, and understanding the delicate balance between fame and personal boundaries. The personal chemistry between the two, especially when it came to respecting Johnny's quirks, demonstrated just how deep their relationship went beyond the surface. Through Reynolds' reflections later in life, it became clear that their connection wasn't only based on mutual admiration for each other's talents. It was grounded in their shared understanding of the complexities of being a public figure. Johnny Carson, for all his on-screen charm and comedic genius, was deeply private. He valued control over his personal life, and his carefully curated public persona was just that, a persona. Behind the smooth, confident smile was a man who needed privacy and space, especially in a world where personal boundaries often blur in the public eye. For Carson, these boundaries were non-negotiable. No excessive touching, no messing with his pens, and above all, no tampering with his hair. These seemingly trivial requests were integral to maintaining the equilibrium of the show. Carson's rules were subtle but firm, setting the stage for each appearance and interview. Reynolds, however, was never one to follow conventional paths. His mischievous nature and rebellious spirit led him to challenge Carson's personal boundaries. Where others may have tiptoed around Carson's rules, Reynolds saw them as an opportunity to add a bit of flair. Yet this wasn't simply an act of defiance. It was a playful, unscripted moment that highlighted Reynolds' understanding of Carson's nuances and his ability to bring out the best in the late-night host. Their interactions, always spontaneous, had a rhythm that was real, grounded in mutual respect and understanding, and yet occasionally filled with the tension that only comes when personalities clash. Looking back, it's clear that their time together on The Tonight Show was more than just a series of off-the-cuff comedic moments. It was a representation of the challenges that came with fame, how to navigate the public spotlight while maintaining one's personal boundaries and space. For two icons of the entertainment world to maintain a genuine friendship, they had to understand the inherent complexities of their celebrity status. Carson, with his calm and collected nature, and Reynolds, with his charm and irreverence, formed a perfect, though at times tumultuous, balance. Their bond was not built on an easy formula. It was shaped by their shared experiences of being under the microscope of public scrutiny and the trust that came with the knowledge that both could be themselves, no matter how unpredictable their moments together might be. What made their relationship so special was the authenticity they brought to the table. Behind the laughter, their connection wasn't simply about jokes or the surface-level banter of a talk show guest. There was an unspoken understanding of each other's space, boundaries, and even vulnerabilities. It became a reminder that despite being larger-than-life figures in Hollywood, they were still human, with all the flaws, quirks, and intricacies that come with that. This, in many ways, made their bond all the more relatable to the millions who watched them. The friendship between Burt Reynolds and Johnny Carson was anything but ordinary. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect blend of charm, humor, and celebrity. But beneath that glitzy exterior, their bond was a complex dance, one marked by tension, mutual respect, and moments that were as unpredictable as the late-night show they shared. Their connection went beyond the stage of The Tonight Show, revealing layers of their personalities that not only entertained millions, but left a lasting imprint on the world of television. In a world where everything often seems scripted, their unscripted moments proved that true connection is born from authenticity. Reynolds, known for his rebellious, off-the-cuff style, was often at odds with Carson's more calculated and professional persona. Carson, a man who prided himself on control, maintained strict personal boundaries during his broadcasts. No excessive touching, no messing with his pens, and perhaps most notably, no tampering with his hair. For most guests, these were simply the rules of engagement, the unspoken codes they were expected to follow. But Reynolds, who thrived on pushing limits, saw these boundaries not as restrictions, but as an invitation to play. At times, Reynolds crossed the line, testing Carson's patience and, on occasion, causing a slight disruption in the typically composed Carson. But it wasn't out of malice. It was just Reynolds' way of injecting a little chaos into the otherwise structured show. This playful tension became part of what made their chemistry so magnetic. The audience could sense it. Carson, the smooth, reserved king of late night, was being gently yet undeniably pushed out of his comfort zone by Reynolds' charismatic and unpredictable antics. But beyond the moments of discomfort, there was a deep, underlying respect between the two men. Reynolds, with his charming smile and off-the-wall humor, may have been the more spontaneous of the duo, but he recognized Carson's genius. Carson was a master of timing, a man whose ability to control the pace of the show and command the attention of his guests was unrivaled. For Reynolds, every appearance on Carson's stage was an opportunity to learn, to absorb the quiet professionalism of the man who had become a late-night legend. Despite the occasional awkwardness, Reynolds deeply appreciated the spontaneous humor that Carson allowed him to bring into the fold. In fact, it was that blend of improvisation and respect that defined their relationship. There was no script for their bond. What made it so compelling was the authenticity of their connection. The moments that worked best were those that came from genuine human interaction, the unplanned, unscripted exchanges that felt real and often unforgettable. Their back and forth wasn't just about pushing boundaries for the sake of entertainment. It was a true exchange of ideas and personalities, each contributing to the overall magic of the show. Carson wasn't just an interviewer, and Reynolds wasn't just a guest. Together, they created something that transcended the typical guest-host dynamic. Their relationship was an interplay of tension and humor, of pushing and respecting limits, that made each of their appearances together a moment of television gold. What set Reynolds and Carson apart from other celebrity pairings of their time was how their friendship and interactions reflected the unpredictable nature of late-night television itself. During an era when shows were becoming increasingly polished and scripted, they brought a level of rawness and authenticity to The Tonight Show that made it stand out. While many celebrity interviews followed a predictable format, Reynolds and Carson's chemistry never did. It was spontaneous, messy at times, and utterly captivating. In an environment where everyone was playing to the camera, these two men managed to carve out a space where their personal connection could shine through. As the years passed, Reynolds came to reflect on his friendship with Carson with a sense of profound gratitude. He recognized that their relationship was something rare in the world of celebrity. It was not the typical Hollywood friendship, a carefully cultivated connection between two stars who benefited from the association. No, their bond was far deeper and more complex. It was grounded in their shared experiences of being thrust into the spotlight, of navigating the perils of fame, and of trying to retain some sense of authenticity amidst the chaos of public life. Though they often clashed in their approaches, Reynolds' raw energy often rattling Carson's calm professionalism, there was an understanding between them that went beyond mere camaraderie. Carson may have appreciated order, but Reynolds taught him to embrace the unplanned moments that so often led to greatness. Carson may have valued control, but Reynolds made him see that sometimes letting go was the best way to capture the magic that only happens in real time. The significance of their friendship went beyond their individual personas or the moments they shared on television. It was a testament to the unpredictable, often messy nature of human relationships, especially those forged under the glaring lights of fame. The truth was, even the most iconic friendships in Hollywood aren't perfect. Like all relationships, theirs had its bumps, awkwardness, missteps, and moments of tension. But it was real, and that's what made it resonate so strongly with their audience. Their bond was a beautiful paradox, a balance between respect and rebellion, tension and humor, professionalism and spontaneity. In a world where everything is often scripted, their unscripted moments stood out as some of the most memorable in late-night television history. It wasn't just the laughs or the viral moments that made their connection so special. It was the layers beneath the surface, the genuine respect they had for each other, and the way they pushed each other to be better, both on screen and off. In hindsight, the legacy of their friendship continues to shape the world of late-night television today. Their authenticity, Reynolds' unfiltered humor, and Carson's quiet but steadfast professionalism became a model for what future talk shows could aspire to. Even now, years after both men have passed, their dynamic remains a benchmark for modern hosts. Talk show hosts today owe a great deal of their success to the trail Reynolds and Carson blazed, proving that authenticity, even in the unpredictable world of late-night TV, will always resonate with audiences. At its core, their friendship was a perfect example of what happens when two larger-than-life personalities come together, not to create scripted moments, but to allow the real, unscripted magic of human connection to shine. And in a town like Hollywood, where everything is often manufactured or meticulously controlled, Reynolds and Carson proved that the most unforgettable moments are often those that come completely unexpectedly. When the barriers come down, the cameras roll, and people are free to be themselves. That was the essence of their chemistry: raw, imperfect, and utterly unforgettable.